Thank you so much for staying with us on AM 120. Our discussion today is the spotlight on President Bola Tinubu's cabinet. It's time to stop looking out the windows right now. Now we know who the ministers are and what their portfolios are. They will be sworn in by Monday, we are told. And so Nigerians have huge expectations for this administration. And these are the crop of individuals who will carry the burden of doing so with the president. We'll be doing that, we'll be having that discussion this morning with someone we're always pleased to have with us here on AM 120, Mr. Tunde Laniyan, big brother to us here at the BCUS, media consultant, former chief press secretary to two past governors here in Oyo State. He's also a veteran journalist. Good morning to you, Mr. Laniyan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So the portfolios have been finally attached to the ministers, 45 of them for now. In your assessment, how well suited are the portfolios to the respective ministers?
The first thing to understand is that aside from the Ministry of Justice, where the Attorney General and Minister of Justice will work, there is no specification for any minister. And the reason is obvious. Ministers are not really technical people. The professionals are within the ministries that they will work in. However, I think that Nigerians have a lot of things to hope for, to be happy about. The people that have been assembled are quite distinct Nigerians. They've achieved in their various areas. They've appeared focused, people who like to work hard. And I'm sure that they will be able to carry, particularly the vision of the president for Nigeria. We've had his vision over the period pre and post the elections, and they are things that can jumpstart Nigeria again, because we are in a rut, so to speak, and we need to get out of that. We need to be at the level that countries should be that have the kind of resources, human and materials, that we have. And I think that those individuals should shine in their various ministries. That's my feeling, and it's not just an expectation. It's because I've looked at their various backgrounds, their various prior achievements, and I think that we can be proud of their achievements as they go forward.
Are there any ministers that particularly stand out for you?
I think one of them is Lateef Fagbemi. Another is Bayo Adelabu. Of course, Bayo Adelabu, for obvious reasons, is not only from Oyo State. He's also an old boy of Nagilu Grammar School, which was my school. So, and like I said, these are people who have already made a name professionally. They've made a name in business too. And so one can look at the trajectory of what they've done before. Ali Pate is a world-renowned physician. Bosun Tijani is a world-renowned innovator. So we have people on the ministerial or on the cabinet who have distinguished themselves. Of course, they are not the only ones that are there. Alausa, from Lagos,
okay,
is also a distinguished nephrologist and businessman. The lady, Dr. Anite from Imo, has distinguished herself. The other doctor from Ogun State, Dr. Lawal, has distinguished himself in many ministries when he was commissioner in Ogun State. So that's why I said the truth is that these are people. Look at the Minister of Education. He's distinguished himself. In fact, his students were in the Senate, who also testified to how he's mentored them, he's helped them, he's focused on education. So I believe that we have a star-studded cabinet. What the cabinet is expected to do is to give a rapid transformation, implementation to the vision that Nigerians expect to change Nigeria. The truth is that President Bola Tinubu started working on this vision about 3 years ago. Well, he's assembled a team to look at the various sectors of the Nigerian society, Nigerian life, Nigerian economy. And so there is enough material to work. For instance, the man in housing was also the MD of the Federal Mortgage Bank. And Tinubu's dream, his vision, is to transform the mortgage industry in Nigeria, to free it from the restrictions of the tight hold of government on provision of housing. Because we have a huge housing deficit. Huge. Huge. By some analysts that I listened to. Some of them said we would need over 30,000 years to be able to meet the way we are going, to be able to fix. Where would we all be in 30,000 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, in your opinion right now, I know you say that you do not really need, technocrats as such in those positions, even though you have reeled out the names of quite a number of technocrats. But also we see on that list, we have quite a number of politicians, core politicians there too, and about 9 former governors are there too. We see Wike being the minister of the FCT, and a number of them there. Do you think that there is the right balance of technocrats and politicians there, particularly considering what they will bring to the table as ministers?
The way I'll answer you is this. If you go into politics, are you just a politician? No. You are going with what is inside of you. You are a qualified professional. So we should stop looking at politicians as if they have nothing to offer. Many of them, look at the governor in Oyo State. He's an engineer. Prior governors also are distinguished themselves in their various fields. So that they then went into politics, became ministers or governors or senators, does not detract from what they can do. I want us to have a grip on that. Some of the governors are engineers. David Umahi in Works is an engineer. You saw what he did with a boy. Wike, lawyer. Saw what he did with Rivers. So these are all people who are also professionals or outstanding individuals in their various callings. So that they are also politicians is also just an advantage that they are expected to understand the terrain. Because part of the problems that we usually had when you had core technocrats who went into politics, and we've had that in the recent past, was that they were consumed because they didn't understand the language of operation in that place. And we must pray for all the ministers. A lot of evil come out from the so-called technocrats who are in the ministries. They slow things down. They don't allow things to happen. They mislead. They cause unnecessary hiccups. People without that experience, and there is no time for holding people's hands when you are made a commissioner or a minister. You are expected to have the reservoir of experience to be able to manage the people you are going to work with. Let them go to retreats upon retreats. They can only give you a bit here and there of what you're going to meet. The environment is like a shark-infested water. You are the one who must take your own experience that you've garnered over the decades into that territory and be able to navigate and be able to manage people and be able to direct them, which is the work of the ministers.
Okay, we'll take a break right now. I will be back.
Now available in new flavors.
All right, thank you very much for staying tuned. Still AM120 right here on BCOS television. Of course, we're talking about the ministers that President Tinubu has picked, and of course the portfolios that have been added for better understanding of their roles. So yes, you were talking about governors and how politicians have prior experience.
Yeah, so when you have people, they know about presenting memos, they know about getting memos ready, they know the process for defending their memos. It's not just for you to write a good memo. People must be able to ask questions. You must be able to convince them. Because at the end of the day, it's not just what you present. You have 47 heads, plus the Secretary to Federal Government. That's 48 people, minimum, that would examine whatever you take into the cabinet, who would have diverse opinions. So you must be able to convince them that your strategy is far better than whatever they are thinking about, that you have thought of a lot of the points that they would raise. That is what a cabinet is. And if for people who have not gone to that level, when you see a lot of people they are talking about, no, they should put this, what is the experience? What is that person taking there? Can the person be in charge? Or the person will be like a kite that's been tossed by those he's supposed to be leading? Those are things that people need to understand, that the kinds of people we need to do that work are people with sufficient spunk to go through whatever is available in their ministries and use those people, know people to change. If you need to change people, you quickly identify those you need to change, those you need to bring up so that you can hit the ground running.
We'll go back to looking at the ministers, their profiles, as well as the portfolios in just a moment. But we also have to say that the president has made some key decisions since his inauguration. Do you feel that the absence of ministers at that time, had any significant, would have made any significant difference right now, or the presence of ministers, let me put it that way, in that space of time would have made anything different? Because now they are going to get there and have to deal with the outcomes of some of the decisions that have been made.
Yes.
So, having them now and not having them then.
Yes. Whether the president talks to a cabinet or talks to us, his word is policy, so to speak. We have resided our trust in the president, so we believe he knows what he's doing. Up to now, we believe that he knows what he's doing. He's clearly focused. What the presence of ministers would do, a cabinet would do, they are the ones who would take the various things that the president has issued as policies in their different ministries and take their own area and unleash more people, supervise more people who are already available, like I said, in the ministries. Ensure that they are doing the right things to get the right results from the policies that are already on the ground. You won't say because ministers aren't there, you won't do policies, you won't do things. You will. That's the normal thing anywhere in the world. You will. You won't say, okay, I can't do anything now until I have. No. There are people in the ministries and their own job, because they have permanent secretaries as well, their job is to begin to run with it. The added thing for ministers is that they have a weekly interaction, of course, with the president. So if there is anything that they need to tweak, to change, it's easy for them to also bring it to the cabinet before the president.
Do you think it would have made any difference?
I don't think so. I just said that. I don't think so. I don't think so. The reason is simple. You either trust your president or you don't have a president. Or you shouldn't have somebody you can't trust. All those ministers are answering his name. They are working on his behalf. It's still Tinubu will ask the questions at the end of tenure. What did you do in health? It's not just, and part of what he had said is unleashing the energy that should be in the health sector to expand it, to make it quite vibrant, that it will begin to achieve things that had not been done before.
Don't you think that's a little authoritarian in the sense that the president is one man? He doesn't have a deeper understanding of all the sectors in Nigeria, and so he needs to draw expertise from various
and you think he didn't draw
individuals.
expertise?
So in sitting down to really look at it in a robust fashion.
That's what I just said. If the ministers aren't there, there's a permanent secretary, there are the directors. These are people who have worked in those areas perhaps for 30 years, some for 35 years. So the president is not just coming on air. It's bewildering if anybody will think that the president will just issue something out of his fancy. No.
So, but this raises this raises the concern that most people talk about, that some ministries are not exactly necessary, that you can merge some ministries together under one supervising minister because the permanent secretaries are there, and there are people to make everything work around. What do you make of that?
This is a personal view of my sense of governance. Historically, we didn't have these many ministries.
First time we have this many.
Second,
That's the first time we're having this many.
it's not only the first time of having this many. I think we've transversed from having 10 ministers to having 30-something. In any case, you can't have less than 37, which I believe is a waste. And my reason is simple. A lot of those things, over the years, we've had to do them. One, the Constitution insists that you must have a minister from every state of the country. And each time you expanded the size of the states, you automatically expand the number of ministers that you must have. Even with the number that we have now, a part of the country is complaining that they need more representation. Even in Oyo State, a group is complaining that they want more ministers. So when you have competing things, it's not you have X number. Those things don't really bother me. What I want are quick decisions, fast actions, so that people can feel the impact of government more. Not only feel the impact of government more, let governance be meaningful. Let people begin to have a sense of the kind of things that they can do, that they can become. Let those opportunities be open to them. For instance, I was talking about mortgage. You cannot constrict a huge market like the housing sector and insist that only government will be funding it largely. And so our banks are not doing enough in terms of releasing the energy that is available in that sector, and they should be encouraged to do so. They are the ones who should take the front seat in knowing that they can gain a lot from such a sector and put their money there. So many things are happening in different areas that we need to pay more attention to what we can gain. Yeah, so we have 40, 50 ministers, 55 ministers. What are they bringing to the table? How are they unleashing the energy of the people? How are they encouraging people to do more? The past government gave the former governor of Lagos, the Tunde Raji Fashola, power, housing, works and housing. People started protests. How can they put so much in one man's hands? The truth was that before now, that was how it existed. And so when Buhari was coming, part of what he negotiated with Tinubu is, I want to make Raji Fashola to be X. I've said it here before. In case that doesn't work, I'm going to compress works, power, and housing, and he will handle it for me. Was he the one who handled it the second time? Because there was so much uproar. How can you can split it? We Nigerians are the ones who are asking. So it's not just a matter of castigating our leaders and saying that you need to also moderate what other Nigerians think is what they want.
Perception also. Manage those perceptions. Let's take another break right now on AM 120.
I miss them.
Well, they should be on their way by now.
Will it feel like it used to? With everyone so busy these days.
It will be fine.
Suddenly, she passes right. Oh, yeah, Laniyan! Single fire!
Grandpa, what was Grandma like?
She always found ways to bring us all together.
Devon Kings, taste that brings us all together.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. It's AM 120. We have been having a conversation with Mr. Tunde Laniyan. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Yes, we're talking about the proprietary or otherwise of splitting ministries or merging them. And interestingly, Nigerians have new ministries now. You know, we are now hearing from the Ministry of Transportation, we have the Ministry of Marine Transport and Blue Economy. I had to ask myself when I saw Blue Economy, okay, what's this all about? At Ministry of Information and Culture, we've carved out the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Industry. I know that will strike something with you.
Definitely. Definitely.
Ministry of Mines and Steel Development split into the Ministry of Solid Minerals and the Ministry of Steel Development. So we are having newer ministries right now. What does it take to run a particular ministry? Because this conversation also must, dive into the cost of governance and that concern that, look, we are basically cash-strapped as a nation now, and everybody has had to cut corners one way or the other. And a lot of expectation had been, is the government cutting corners also, just as Nigerians are? And by cutting corners, I'm not talking about, inefficiency.
I understand.
Yes, but, that belt tightening, it doesn't seem to flow from the top to the bottom. In your opinion?
The first thing about that we should understand about the configuration of the cabinet, of the distribution of work, is that we should be looking at those new ministries. It means that there are particular things that are being targeted to produce huge results from them. And those things came in some of the town halls that Tinubu held. Young people talking about the possibilities available in those various sectors. Those sectors have been identified as places where Nigeria can increase greatly by leaps, according to the desire of the president, the GDP of Nigeria. You will find that we are not doing well in terms of our marine economy. They're making a lot of money. The master makes so much money that binds 7-10 states together, they don't make the money that the master makes. But it's peanuts to what we can make from that sector. We also need to channel the energy properly. Our ports have still been lagging behind those of smaller West African states. Is it doable? They are not witches in those other countries. So they are doable. People have just constituted themselves into clogs. They need to be removed. When you are in the traditional setting, when you've made your fire and you find that a particular wood is not supporting the efficiency of the fire, what do? You removed it. You put in the ones that will be more efficient. So that's what we are seeing when you see this kind of separation, the kind of creation. And I'm excited. For instance, we have a Nigerian who is looking at being an astronaut, who's been trying just to come and meet the people here. He's doing things in other African countries, but he's not got a single approval to meet anybody. Those are not things that a president will sit and be able to see. It's when you release the energy. So when you have an aerospace ministry of aviation and aerospace economy, that's the kind of energy we expect to be unleashed. Can Nigeria make drones? We can. Can Nigeria go to the moon? We can. But is our energy being channeled in those areas? No. Should we? Yes, because that is the future. So we cannot continue to be hampered by just the things that we saw before. We need to now look beyond the things that we knew. Because so many things are happening in the world that we need to measure up to.
Let's look at the decoupling of Ministry of Youth and Sports, for example. Now we have Minister of Youths and we also have Minister of Sports Development. Some say, well, that's not necessary, that it worked fine as Ministry of Youth and Sports. What do you make of that?
The youths make the largest chunk of population in our country. I think this, and unfortunately under the previous arrangement, I don't think things concerning the youths were properly articulated and that they were feeling government. In fact, they are the most dissatisfied group with governance. And they're not idiots. It's because they cannot feel that the government is working for them. How will the government work for them? Focus on them. Let's have things that would promote the interest of the youth. That's what is happening there. There's a lot to do in sports. You can, in future, when you have already unleashed all those things, you can go back to recoupling some of those ministries. When those things have taken a life of their own. I think I'd said it on one of the programs before. There's a document by Papa Okunla here. That document is about over 50 years old. It's supposed to be Nigeria's social policy that prescribe the things that we should do for people, for buildings, for access. But do we do them? It compels that in public buildings, you must have access for people that are disabled. How many of our public buildings have implemented that? It states that on every public building, there must be Nigerian artwork in the lobby. How many of our public buildings have all those things? The document is already there. Like I said, it's about half a century old. It needs a review. It's not even been properly implemented. It was done under Gawan. So there are so many things that we ought to do that we didn't do. There are too many things that would have helped, that would have promoted the impact of governance on people. But we don't pay attention to them. And maybe some people, after making the fights, the noise, they get tired. And maybe that's what some people who want to be corrupt are looking out for. Let these people take away their noise. But we must be continually interrogating all those things. So, in terms of governance, government must ensure that it carries people along. When you tell them to tighten their belts, let them see that those in government are tightening their belts. The people learn by observation, and they learn from what they see. Those who are ordering them, who are exhorting them to do things, what are they really doing? A Nigerian professional had gone to India, doctor, and his colleague told him, I would have given you rice today, but I can't because, and he said, why? Don't you have rice at home? And he said, oh, because you don't have rice. I said, no, I have rice. But today is a no rice eating day in India. What is no rice eating day? And said, what are you talking about? Who is going to know whether you cooked rice? And he said, no. Said, the way we talk too. Said, who is going to know from your presidential district? Do you know if they are cooking rice today? He said, no. They will never cook rice. That's the kind of trust that needs to be built between the rulers and the governed. They must be able to trust us. When we ask them to do things, they must know that we are also willing to submit to that kind of regulation.
So let's look at some critical ministries, and we'll start with the Ministry of Defense. Of course, we now have the Minister of Defense and, of course, Minister of State for Defense. Some argue that this position should be filled with retired military professionals with extensive experience. Minister of Defense is Mohammed Badaru, and the Minister of State Defense is Bello Matawale. So some argue that, well, we're not getting the kind of experience we thought we'd be getting in that area, considering the state of insecurity. What do you make of that argument?
The way I started, you don't need, no ministry is reserved for people with military or security experience. Note again, these were former governors who were governors in areas where we had insurgency and all sorts, who were interacting with the security apparatuses in their different states. They were every week receiving security briefing, interacting with them. That's what ministers will do. The people who will still do the work are the various commanders, the GOCs, the Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Air Staff, Chief of Naval Staff. Those are the ones who will still do the work. All that the ministers need to do, like I said, is coordination. What are they offering? Okay, if you are offering A, B, C, and you don't take only one position in strategy, you look at different perspectives, and that's what you take to your minister. That's what your minister orders to be brought to him. Can we have what we want to do with X, Y, Z? And when you present that, can then look at, okay, this would be the best position for us to use in tackling this problem. And that's what you can take to the Executive Council. It doesn't mean then that even the two other positions that you rejected cannot be the ones that the Executive Council would then approve. That can be so. People can insist. And when they begin to ask questions and he's pointing there, you have to come, we had considered them too. These are the reasons why we think that this one is superior. That's all the ministers need to do. They don't have to be combatants or former combatants.
When you talk about, these ministers having the capability to unlock the potentials and unleash the energy in their own ministries now, but when we also look at a Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria in the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development right now, do you see a Senior Advocate of Nigeria being able to unlock those potentials in that space there? Former CBN Deputy Governor Bayo Adelabu now also in power. There are those that feel there are some mismatches there.
Okay, let me reverse the question, starting with Bayo Adelabu. You've had engineers and whatever before Fashola, before Bola Ige in the power ministry. Is this where we thought we would be? No. So, try other methods. Like I said, a minister, all you need to do is to work hard, to have information, to know the direction, to have a strategy. And when you want to have a strategy, you're not the only one who's going to work on it. When Uncle Bola Ige was invited to be minister, all his boys working with him, he said, go and present papers on those ministries that I'm considering. We did. I was a lead writer for our group. We did research. I can proudly say today that a lot of the things that they are implementing were contained in the things that we presented to Chief Bola Ige. The unbundling of NEPA, even though they have not done it to the level that we recommended, so that you unleash the energies that are available. And you need to give those things to people that will properly implement them. Some of the things that happened was that those things were sold to people who were not, they had money, but they didn't have the passion to achieve what Bola Ige would have wanted or Obasanjo would have wanted to be achieved in the sector. So it's not because Bola Ige was not an engineer. It was because there were people in that sector that was bent on sabotaging him. And unfortunately, Obasanjo capitulated to that and brought in somebody who had been in NEPA to be his Minister of State. And that thing never recovered. And after what we are saying today is that they wasted $16 billion on that sector. We had engineers there. So, a Bayo Adelabu, who has not only been an economist, a CBN deputy governor, who had performed in the financial sector, who had performed in his businesses that is established, that's what you need. That's all. That's what you need for envisioning.
But what about the time it's time needed to get a grasp of what's going on there? We remember, Nigerians remember the immediate past Minister of Education coming out to tell Nigerians, look, he had no true knowledge of that sector, and it took him a while to be able to understand what was going on there.
You will have people like that who will be misfits. You cannot... Now, I'm not talking about misfits. Like I said, a lot of people in the aviation industry, a lot of top people, They were not aviation people. They were not pilots. But they are running very, very profitable airlines. So, how are they doing it? It's because they are applying themselves, they obtain the views, the positions of experts, of professionals, and they marry all of that into coherent policies that will enable them to function and achieve.
But Mr. Laniyan, it does look like the president is retaining what President Buhari did with regard to the Ministry of Petroleum. It does appear that he'll be the Minister of Petroleum, and now we have a separate ministry for gas resources, and of course that's Minister of State for gas resources, and we also have the Minister of State for petroleum resources. So two questions: what do you make of the president being Minister of Petroleum, and then decoupling also the Ministry of Gas Resources and Petroleum Resources, that's of state?
What I would first say is that it's a ministry that needs attention. It's a ministry that is able to cause Nigeria trouble, as we saw under Buhari, from almost 2 million barrels per day, we dropped to less than 1 million barrels some months. So we must pay attention. Now, the matter is not in my hands to tell him he can't be minister. If he wants, that's fine. But pay proper attention. Pay proper attention to everything, every single thing that is happening in that sector. Does he have the experience? I think he has the experience. He can manage. But there are so many things contending for the attention of whoever the president is. So he must be willing to apply himself. Did Buhari have the qualification to sit on the petroleum ministry? He did. But he didn't apply himself the way he should. So whoever wants to be atop the Ministry of Petroleum Resources needs to be totally on his toes. So Tinubu would need to be on his toes to manage the variables in that ministry. And it's good that he's separated gas from it, because they weren't paying attention to it. And we have more gas than we have petroleum than crude. So it's an area that needs a lot of money. In fact, the Trans-Saharan pipeline is a huge project. So somebody needs to keep an eye on it. Other trains are being envisaged for our gas lines, even in Nigeria. We should also ensure that they come up.
Okay. We have to leave it at that and say a very big thank you to you. We are most grateful to you, Mr. Tunde Laniyan, for talking to us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break right now on EM 120. Do stay with us.